Hey everyone, how you doing? It's me, the toasty dude named Thomas, and with summer in full swing, I've been busy playing a lot of games. Like most recently, I've been playing Pikmin 1 and 2, and it's been quite enjoyable surviving with my little buddies and
watching in horror as they die.
But I wasn't just playing those games, I was also playing another game. A game I remember getting back when I was 14. A game that I had come to despise. A game so difficult that it tempts a person to speedrun it. A game that if you've read the title by now, you know what it is. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories on PS1. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a manga/anime about a boy named Yugi who, after completing an ancient Egyptian puzzle, gets possessed by the soul of a pharaoh and challenges bad people to shadow games, where he would end up punishing them for their crimes and/or cheating. Then came the chapter/episode about a card game called Duel Monsters, which stood out so much to the point readers wanted to play it for themselves. So, after wrapping up the original Yu-Gi-Oh!, its creator, Kazuki Takahashi, may he rest in peace, would then create a new series based on Duel Monsters. And from there, Yu-Gi-Oh! Became the beloved, if confusing card game it is today. And I, for one, enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! Hell, I enjoyed enough to own a binder's worth of cards, with some of the iconic ones including Red Eyes Black Dragon, Black Skull Dragon, Cyber End Dragon, XYZ Dragon Cannon, Thousand Dragon, and much more. I even have an Exodia piece that's in Spanish for some reason.
Wow, Exodia, no es posible.
But you're not here to see my collection of cards, you're here for today's game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories came out in Japan of December 1999, and it wouldn't reach the States until March of 2002, where it would go on to receive mixed reception across the board, with reviews citing it as a difficult game, and I can confirm, this is one of the hardest games you'll ever play. It's up there with the likes of Dark Souls, Ghosts and Goblins, and RC Stunt Copter. It's a game I tried to beat, but ultimately gave up each time due to factors out of my control. So years passed, and I never gave it another look. Until a few months back when I saw a video about it by The Rixer where he talks about the game's speedrunning scene, and watching it inspired me to give it another chance. But how can a difficult game inspire a person to speedrun it? Well, today I'm going to take you on a trip down this lane of forbidden memories and hopefully beat this game in the process. I am the toasty dude named Thomas, and this is the luck-based Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories experience. We start the game by first entering our name, and I'm just gonna go with Tut Tut. I can't really think of anything else creative. So after entering our name, we then see this Jafar-looking guy inside some tomb who has found the forbidden treasure of the ancient sorcerers. Oh wow, forbidden treasure from some ancient sorcerers. How original. But we don't care about that, so let's jump to our main character, Prince Tut Tut, whose caretaker, Simon Miron, won't let him go to the city to play cards, so he decides to just run away. This brings us to the map screen, where we can go to a handful of places. However, I'm going to the card shop because I need to check my starting deck, which is very important, whether or not you plan to speedrun this game. I'll get into the specifics, but for now, know that you might want to reset a few times as there are some cards you'll want to start out with. So, Tut Tut heads to the dueling grounds where he runs into Teyana, the ancestor to Teia, who challenges us to a duel. Aha, right! We're getting to the dueling. And it's here you'll notice that this game does not play like traditional Yu-Gi-Oh! Sure, the objective of lowering the opponent's life points to 0 is still present, but how you go about playing cards is different. Instead of being able to summon one monster per turn, with the option of setting one card face down, you instead only play one card per turn, regardless of whether or not it's a monster, spell, or trap. There are also no effect monsters, but to make up for the lack of effects, the monsters can be used for the most important mechanic in the game, fusion, which is done by pressing up on a monster card and another monster card, and then if they're compatible, they'll fuse to make a stronger monster. No polymerization required. And you better believe you're gonna need to master the fusions, because your non-fusion monsters can only do so much before they become useless later on. But we'll get there soon. On the subject of monsters, one thing you should know, and one thing I'm surprised a lot of videos I've seen on Forbidden Memories haven't brought up, is that if you press the square button on an opposing monster card, you'll get a 3D battle, and the models look really good. Not just the big name monsters, the minor monsters also look pretty good for PS1 standards. Yeah, some of them look a little goofy, but they still look very good all around. And after a few attacks, Teyana is defeated. We then get the results screen, which shows our rank, the card we get for winning, and some star chips, which are important for another mechanic, but more on that later. So Tut Tut duels some of the other people at the duel grounds and then goes with Teyana to a festival going on at the plaza. She comments that there are a lot of people around. Uh-huh. Yeah, there sure are a lot of people around Tayana. Tut-Tut and Tayana then find Jono, the ancestor of Joey, getting his ass handed to him by Seto, the ancestor of, well, Seto Kaiba. Man, who would have thought the Wheeler family would be destined to lose to the Kaiba family for generations to come? Tayana and Jono suggest that Tut-Tut duel Seto, but before we can, Seto is called to see Haishin, whoever that is. So Tut-Tut duels Jono until Seto gets back, where we duel him to some really boppin' music. Anyway, Tut-Tut beats Seto, and winning makes Tayana start fangirling over Tut-Tut. With the victory over Seto, Tut-Tut heads home for the night, while Simon wonders if Tut-Tut heads to the city to annoy him. Well, the life of a prince can get boring, having to deal with all the stuff that a prince has to deal with.
I don't know, I'm not a prince.
Suddenly, the palace is attacked by Haishin, who just so happens to be that Jafar-looking dude we saw in the intro, and he's come to take over the kingdom. Tut-Tut tries to escape, but is stopped by Seto, who demands that Tut-Tut tells him where the Millennium item is. Simon then gives Tut-Tut the Millennium puzzle and tells him to run away, which he does until he runs into Haishin, who Simon says he must duel, but it's ultimately pointless. Why? Because he possesses many of the strongest cards in the game, and Tut-Tut valiantly tries, but ultimately loses. And you'll want to keep this loss in mind, as it foreshadows what is to come later. So without any other options, Simon then tells Tut-Tut to break the puzzle, which he does, sealing his soul within it. Inside, Simon tells him that this was the only way to protect him and the puzzle, and says that someone will come along to fix the puzzle one day, even though Haishin could probably just do it himself, but I guess he can't figure it out, can he? Ah well. For now, all Tut-Tut can do is rest. We then jump to the present, where we see Yugi and Joey getting ready for a tournament that isn't Duelist Kingdom? Yeah, as I'm sure you've seen by now, this game does not follow the story of the anime at all. This is pretty much an original story about the pharaoh when he was a prince. It's quite odd that they do this, considering there was already an anime to take material from, but I guess they figured, it's a licensed game, who cares? Moving on, Yugi and Joey go to the opening ceremony where Kaiba says that he intends to win it all. I wouldn't say that, Kaiba, old boy. And then it's off to face the first opponent, Rex Raptor, who is easy to beat but drops a few useful cards. And we're going to need some of those cards in order to stand a chance, because by this point, the foes ahead are going to have many powerful cards, and our current deck won't cut it, so we need to grind. And this brings us to the thing that might turn some people away from trying this game. Now, there's going to be a lot of explaining here, so I'm going to go through this as fast as I can. So, in order to get more cards, you need to go to free duel mode and duel opponents over and over again. In the case of Rex Raptor, he drops many helpful cards like Crawling Dragon number 2 and Dragon Zombie among a plethora of other dragons. However, all these cards don't drop equally. They are all divided into 3 separate drop pools each opponent has. SA POW, SA Tech, and BCD POW and Tech. POW ranks require you to basically beat the crap out of your opponent, while Tech requires you to hold out for as long as you can against your opponent. And Crawling Dragon number 2 and Dragon Zombie only drop at the ranks of SNA POW, and the chances of getting these cards are quite slim, meaning you'll be grinding for quite a while, which is why I suggested earlier to reset your deck a few times, specifically for Dragon and Thunder monsters, because those are required to make the one monster you'll be relying on the most, Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon at 2800 attack. Alongside having other cards like Regeki, which eliminates all monsters on your opponent's side of the field. Believe me, this is better than having Dark Hole. The field cards, Mountain or Umi, which can power up Twin-Headed, and an equip card Twin-Headed is compatible with. And trying to get equip cards can be very difficult, as the chance of getting one is very, very small. Holy shit, that was fast. Now, you could alleviate some of this grinding by using the password option in the main menu, where you can enter the codes found on actual Yu-Gi-Oh cards to gain the cards there. However, I say could, because you don't actually get the card. You have to get enough star chips, which are earned by dueling, and the prices for a card like, say, Red Eyes Black Dragon?
How much?
This game pretty much makes you grind in order to stand a chance, and even then, you still need a little bit of luck. But after defeating Rex 115 times and Jono 63 times for some Thunders and Time Wizard, my deck is ready to go. So on to the next opponent, Weevil Underwood. He is pretty damn easy. Next is My Valentine, who is also easy. After her is Bandit Keith, who can be challenging if he gets the right cards like Zoa, but is otherwise easy. Don't get comfortable though, the last couple opponents in this tournament will give you some trouble. But before getting to them, Yugi and Joey have a chat in between their duels, when suddenly they're interrupted by Shadi, who tells them that the Millennium items have all been gathered here to this tournament. Shadi believes that this has something to do with Yugi's doppelganger. Shadi says he can use his Millennium Key so Yugi can go into his mind, which he... Whoa! What the hell is up with Yugi's fingers? Why do they look like they belong on a girl? Has he been trying to grow out his nails? Or does he just forget to clip his nails? Anyway, Yugi goes into his mind and sees Tut Tut. And all Tut Tut does is give Yugi a bunch of blank cards and doesn't elaborate on what they do. Upon heading back, Yugi tells Shadi that all he was given were a bunch of blank cards. Shadi says they may have something to do with the Millennium items, but there's no time to think about it since the finals are starting up. So Yugi proceeds to his next match, with Shadi being his opponent, who claims that him and Yugi were destined to duel. Assuming his definition of destined to duel is getting his ass handed to him by my twin-headed Thunder Dragon, upon defeating Shadi, his Millennium Scales and Key get sucked into 2 of the cards, and Shadi says that Tut Tut seemingly wants Yugi to beat people for their Millennium items. After that, we come face to face with Bakura under the control of the Millennium Ring. Bakura can be kinda tough due to him having defensive powerhouses like Millennium Shield and Labyrinth Wall, who have 3000 defense and can make twin-headed Thunder Dragon useless if you pick the wrong Guardian Star, which is basically Pokemon weaknesses but with the planet. You pick one of the 2 your monster has and hope you get the right one. But despite this hindrance, Yugi beats Bakura. Then we get to Pegasus, who is pretty terrifying as he has the destructive powerhouse Meteor Black Dragon at 3500 attack. And unless you draw your removal card, or you get 2 equips for twin-headed, you're boned. As for drops, he'll drop 2 of the best equipped cards in the game. Bright Castle, which can be equipped to any monster, and Megamorph, which can also be equipped to any monster, but it gives a monster 1000 attack points. The catch is that you have to S or A tech him, and that's already challenging enough. Next is who I'm assuming is a Shizu Ishtar, but she's evil for some reason. She has the chance of summoning Black Skull Dragon at 3200 attack, which can be dangerous if you don't get an equip for twin-headed, but she's really easy because she picks the Neptune Guardian Star, and twin-headed just so happens to have Pluto, which Neptune is weak against. With everyone else out of the way, the only opponent left is Kaiba, who claims that the Millennium Rod whispers that he must defeat Yugi. But Yugi, being the protagonist, defeats him without much trouble. See, I told you, Kaiba, you jinxed yourself. And with all the items in the cards, Yugi uses them to send Tut Tut back to his own time period. Before he goes back, he sees Simon one last time, who tells him that Haishin has placed the items in temples scattered across the realm, and can find their locations in the ruins. Which ruins does he mean by this? He doesn't elaborate. So, it's gonna be fun trying to find these ruins. Upon returning to Egypt, Tut Tut finds the city in ruins after Haishin took over. He looks around each area, seeing them in ruin, even the palace, where he bumps into a mage soldier who is a pushover but has the chance of dropping dark energy, which Twinhead can use. After that encounter, Tut Tut heads to the old duel grounds and finds Jono, who brings him to an underground location where the duels happen these days. Once there, Jono explains that Haishin and the mages destroyed the dueling grounds after Tut Tut disappeared, and because the villagers didn't tell them where Tut Tut went. And since they possess the Millennium items, no one can stand up to them. After a quick duel with Jono, Tut Tut heads to the Valley of Kings in hopes of finding out where the ruins are. As he arrives, he meets Shadin, who has been guarding the valley from Haishin for years. Tut Tut asks him to find the ruins, but does not know where they are, so Tut Tut heads back to the palace to see if Simon left anything there that would help him, which he does. Tut Tut finds a map and brings it to Shadin. Tut Tut and Shadin head to the Forbidden Ruins and find a map with the locations of all the Millennium items on it. Suddenly, Seto shows up and tells us that Haishin needs all the items to take over the world. I don't know why you need to give us this unnecessary exposition, but go on. Why does he tell us this? He claims that we'll find out soon enough. He's gonna betray us, isn't he? This is usually a sign that they're gonna betray us. So with the locations in mind, this brings us to the mages, aka the part of the game where I ultimately gave up in my very first attempt. From here, you have to defeat the 5 shrines holding the items. However, this is the point of the game where the opponents become near unbeatable. Well, okay, not entirely. The Sea Shrine is a breeze, but the next 4 are hard and will wipe the floor with our current deck, which means more grinding. But before you do, there is one particular opponent you need to beat. Low Meadow Mage. Why? Because he drops a ton of powerful cards like Dark Magician, Gaia the Fierce Knight, Curse of Dragon who could be fused with Gaia to make Gaia the Dragon Champion at 2600 attack, and the very, very, very rare chance of a Meteor Black Dragon. And you bet your ass I grinded for that card. After grinding, Tut Tut heads back and beats Meadow Mage again, and then comes face to face with High Mage Kapura. And my god, he is unfair. So one thing I should have mentioned about the mages earlier is that they all have the field advantage, meaning all their monsters have a 500 point boost at all times. And in the case of Kapura, there is a very high chance he'll play his strongest card, Gate Guardian, at 3750 attack, 4250 on Meadowfield. And since there is no tributing required in this game, he could just play it and beat your ass. And considering how you actually have to summon Gate Guardian, This is just straight up unfair. How do you get around this? Well, there's one simple way you get around this. You have to get lucky. You can have the cards you need in this game, but that means nothing when you can't even draw what you need to win. You basically need to pray to the Lord of the Dance you get what you need. Otherwise, you're going back to your last save and have to beat the low mage again. But after a few attempts, I beat him. After clearing the first 2 shrines, Tut-Tut checks back with Jono to learn that Tiana was taken by the mages. So they head to the vast shrine, first dealing with Labyrinth Mage, and then getting through the maze, where they eventually find Tiana with Seto and Haishin, who looks like she's enjoying being kidnapped. What? Look at her face! She looks like she's enjoying this! Then Tut-Tut duels Seto and wins. After that fiasco, Tut-Tut takes on the Desert Shrine and swaggers through with ease. Not much else to say with this shrine, so I decided to show off some of the monster models, like Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, who looks like a penis. Twin-Headed Thunder Penis. But Meteor Black Dragon, on the other hand, looks really badass. Tut-Tut also handles the Mountain Shrine with little to no issues. Then comes to the Forest Shrine, which is home to High Mage Anubis, who, like Kapura, can beat the crap out of you with his field advantage, using perfectly ultimate Great Moth at 3500 attack, 4000 on the Forest field. Fortunately, Tut-Tut beats him on the 3rd time around, and with that, he has all the items. Seto comes in and says that he must now face what may very well be the hardest final gauntlet in gaming history. The Shrine of Darkness. Within it is a non-stop onslaught of opponents, and if you lose to even one of them, you have to start at the very beginning. So you might want to grind a bit to make sure you have enough firepower to win. But I already did that, so let's do this. After Seto shows us the way into Haishin's shrine, we first face Sebek and Neku, who have some pretty powerful cards, but fortunately I got lucky with them and they didn't summon them. But then we get to Haishin for the long-awaited rematch. The battle for Egypt has begun, and the very first thing he does is leave his monster in face-down attack mode? What? Well, as it turns out, by this point, the AI is programmed to know what card you played face down. But I didn't play my Meteor Black Dragon face down, as you can see here. Why would he do this with a Black Skull Dragon? I don't know. But after a powerful dark magic attack, Tut-Tut defeats Haishin, and Egypt is saved from his dark grasp. Seto then swoops in and congratulates Tut-Tut for getting all the items, and the two head for the Forbidden Ruins, where Seto reveals that he was just using Tut-Tut for his own gain. Oh no! Who could have seen that coming? Blah blah blah, he wants to beat Tut-Tut for the items, yada yada, let's just finish this, Seto. And this brings us to the hardest fight in the game. So remember when I said that the AI was programmed to know what cards you played? Well, after doing some research, it turns out the AI cheats in another way. See this 5-card hand? Well, there are actually 20 cards in there, because the AI changes their hand, so unless you're able to power up your monster, they'll always have something to destroy it with. And Seto has just the card for this, and that card is Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon at 4500 attack. And don't get too happy if you get rid of it, he'll just throw out another. But I came too far to be beaten, and after a long duel, I did it. I beat Seto for the 3rd time, and with him defeated, Tut-Tut attempts to destroy the Millennium items until he is interrupted by Haishin, who decided to not let losing a card game get the better of him, and threatens to kill Seto if Tut-Tut doesn't hand over the items. Sadly, Tut-Tut gives Haishin the items, and he uses them to revive Dark Knight. That's his name. That's actually his name. Haishin attempts to control Dark Knight by claiming that he is under a pact with him. However, Dark Knight sees through his bullshit and swiftly turns Haishin into a card, and then burns him alive. Holy shit. I mean, I know he was the bad guy, but jeez, I don't think Haishin deserved that cruel of a fate. And then he turns his sights on Seto and Tut-Tut, but before he can turn them into cards, Seto tells Tut-Tut that his deck contains the Millennium cards he got from Yugi, and Tut-Tut uses them to hold a pact with Dark Knight. However, he won't go back quietly unless he loses a duel to Tut-Tut. And so Tut-Tut faces Dark Knight in a very, very tough duel. Not only does he have a lot of powerful monsters, he also has access to some very scary magic and trap cards, such as Shadow Spell that cuts your monster's attack by 1000, and Reverse Trap, which undoes the boost from equip cards. But with some perseverance, I beat Dark Knight. But that's not the final battle. You then have to face his ultimate form. Really loving a lot of the original names here, but I was going to win no matter what. And with the final hit from Meteor Black Dragon, win I did. Dark Knight is sealed away, the Forbidden Ruins are buried, the mages are no more, and Tut-Tut gains his rightful place as the ruler of Egypt, as he whom we call Yu-Gi-Oh! Hey, the game wrote it, not me. And that was the luck-based Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories experience. I gotta say, beating this game felt like facing a demon that's been haunting you for years, and finally stomping it. Don't get me wrong, this game had a lot of annoyances and obstacles to deal with, like cheating opponents, loads of grinding, and relying on luck to win, but revisiting this game now and beating it into the ground like it did to me years ago is nothing short of satisfying. I don't play a lot of hard games for, well, the reason should be clear to see, but this game reminded me of how fun hard games can be when you learn how to overcome their quirks. And if I can persevere through this game, you can too, whether you choose to speedrun it or not. Now if you don't mind, I got some Pikmin to play with. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video on Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories. I have always wanted to do a video on this game, and to be able to finally do it feels great. There are actually many other Yu-Gi-Oh! Games I want to look at, but I'll get to them some other time. But before I go, I do want to quickly mention that I have a Discord server you can join, as I have no intention of using Twitter all that much. So if you want to check out my Discord server and chat with me, link is in the description below. With that said, I am the toasty dude named Thomas, and until next time, have a good one.